is in feminine mode, right? The tzaddik is sometimes the active phallus, but the tzaddik is also often identified with the Shekhinah, right? With the receiving of the divine, right? The tzaddik is sometimes the feminine who's penetrated by the divine, and sometimes, the phallic incarnation, right, who penetrates divinity, right, and reseeds the pregnant divinity. And so and I think it's a beautiful idea to have a feminine and masculine dialogue just about that topic. I think we need to do that. And I guess just in our initial frame, what we're saying is that those two moments then in the Kabbalah are the two faces of the master. And the master is the feminine who's penetrated, and the master is the phallic incarnation who penetrated by the divine and seeing the divine. That really is this notion of receiving and transcending.
Yeah, I think that's very beautifully put myself. So I just give a deep smile, a deep gratitude, a deep blessing to that teaching.
Amen. Amen. This is so wonderful to really be in a genuine evolutionary dialogue.
It is.
To hear your voice, and it's just so completely sweet.
Yeah, I would love to take an expanding stab also at this legitimate versus literal. And this will be a bit dense. Again, I'm just trying to, in a sense, pepper or perfume this initial dialogue with things that we can also expand on later. And that would be Shunryu Suzuki, who is one of the great Zen teachers, kind of contemporary Zen teachers, has actually said, I should have the direct quote in front of me, I don't at the moment, but fairly close to quote, he says, the essence of big mind is to amplify itself through activity. Really interesting
So
phrase.
let me just repeat that just so I got the words. The essence of big mind is to amplify self through activity.
To amplify itself, but you could say self as well. But so big mind, the essence of big mind is to amplify big mind through activity.
Beautiful.
And in a sense, then, this is kind of this is a way of understanding that, and this will lead into our kind of literal versus legitimate. There's a way of looking at kind of unity, oneness, or emptiness as a kind of absolute void space, as an absolute lack of all distinctions, of all divisions, of all appearances of any kind whatsoever, right? Kind of just that darkness shining wild as the fundamental ground and source. That's kind of
Beautiful.
One way of understanding it.
Darkness shining wild. Beautiful.
But I would like to say that there's also a teaching that would say that that's a very kind of limited understanding. That this is not opposed. This is not opposed to two-ness. And Woody Allen, it's attributed to Woody Allen, has this beautiful quote where he says, "Students graduating from oneness will move on to two-ness."
Nice.
And I would say that unity can actually be seen as distinction freed into dance from the veil of division. So we move beyond.
Say the last sentence again.
Unity can be seen as distinction freed, and you could say freed and fulfilled into dance beyond the veil of division. So that division may not be literally true, and yet distinction is legitimately true. And if
that's precisely that's beautiful. That's a beautiful way to say it.
And if we kind of follow that through, if unity is actually distinction beyond division, then the fuller and the more ecstatic the division, the fuller and the more ecstatic the unity. And then we might actually see that distinction may be the activity through which big mind amplifies itself as its very essence.
That's very beautiful. So let me just reflect back what you're saying. So we're talking about, we're in the world of paradox. And the world of paradox is always the world of truth, and we need to have a dialogue just on paradox in an expanded integral or evolutionary tantra, and in an evolutionary Kabbalah, and how paradox is and how paradox plays. And so we're in the world of paradox, which is of course the world of laughter.
Exactly. Beautiful.
And we have to laugh about laughter and talk about laughter as well, in the future. But just to really stay kind of focused here for a second, that's something that we try and do here, try and weave the thread, but to really stay focused with it. So there's this kind of notion of the one which is the only one, the absolute one, the one and the only one. And that's this very, very, kind of, the shining, the wild shining darkness, the darkness shining wild, the kind of emptiness which is fully empty in its fullness, which allows for no distinctions and no personality and no division. And at the same time, when we penetrate the unity, we see that the nature of the unity itself in its highest expression is what they would call in Kabbalah Achdut Sheberibui, the absolute unity of absolute polarity, right? The absolute unity which transcends and includes, which receives into itself all of the distinctions, right, and integrates them into a higher unity, where unity means radical, absolute integration. And I think you're pointing to one of the problems that seekers have when they read and listen to spiritual talks. They don't really understand that when people talk about no distinctions, or they talk about the one, they're not talking about the one, right, which is the bland one. It's not the one which is not nuanced and not subtle and not distinct, right? It's the one that doesn't allow for any ontological divisions. There's no real, what oneness means is there's no real division between anything.
Right.
And it's so important. When we say, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one," there's declaration of oneness. When we say Echad, Yachid, Umiyuchad, in Hebrew it's very beautiful. It means Echad, the one, Yachid, the single one, Miyuchad, the singular one. The one, the single one, the singular one. But the one, the single one, the singular one, includes all distinctions. Oneness means that which doesn't allow for anything to be distinct from it in a way in which it's ontologically or ultimately or truly or really separate from it. And there are no separate shards or fragments that are not ultimately part of the one. In other words, there's a beautiful nigun that we would sing in the Galilean in Tel Aviv in Israel, which was Echad, Yachid, Umiyuchad, the one, the single one, the singular one. In other words, it would go something like this. And it came from, I heard Eliyahu McLean, actually, I heard the nigun from him actually the first time at one of the first festivals that we did in Israel. And the nigun actually comes from, I think, the spiritual rainbow movement in America. And it goes something like this. Echad Yachid Umiyuchad, Echad Yachid Umiyuchad, the one, the only one, the one, the single one, the one, the singular one, the one, Echad Yachid Umiyuchad, Echad Yachid Umiyuchad. And that's really it. It's really the Torah you're saying so beautifully, right? That the one is so rich, it's so full, and we're so dogmatizing, we're so homogenizing of the one. We so can't admit of distinctions. And that's what dogma is kind